Welcome everyone to BPW Goes Digital. This initiative is to bring BPW into a digital era. It is co-facilitated by Dr. Ann Hilty and myself, along with trainers and presenters who are young BPW members from across the globe. The topic for today is Principles of Graphic Design, and the presenter for today is Berfin Ucha from BPW Turkey, and she is a young BPW member of BPW Maiden Star Club. She is a psychologist and currently studying public relation and advertising. With this, I would like to welcome our speaker, Berfin, and now the floor is all yours.
Hello everyone, I'm Berfin, and today I'm going to talk about basics of graphic design. While doing that, I'll be talking about three important topics: color, typography, and design layout. I think that these topics are essential for those who are not specialized in graphic design. Before moving on to the topics I mentioned, I think that the question, what is graphic design, should be answered. If we Googled what is graphic design, it will show you graphic design is the art or skill of combining text and pictures in advertisements, magazines, and books. Although this definition seems pretty good at first glance, I think this definition is not very inclusive when we think about it a bit. Especially in our case, when we consider the importance of communication with the whole world, I think that our biggest trump is the successful visual communication. So, how do we succeed in this art of visual communication? There are aesthetic and functional requirements for the emerge of a visual communication, such as color, space, shape, direction, typography, so on. Throughout this presentation, we will look briefly at these facts. Also, some basic principles that we must follow for successful visual communication. The most important of these are integrity, attention, continuity, and visuality. Without them, a design should not be called a design. Since we talk about what is graphic design, now it's time to colors. So the most important element of a design is the choice of colors and the harmony of the selected colors. Therefore, when creating our design, we need to know well which colors we should choose and the harmony between the colors we choose. In order to do this, we need to have basic knowledge about color theory and color psychology. Color theory provides us with practical guidance to help us mix colors and create interesting color combinations, and it all starts with some important terms. These are hue, saturation, and value. These are terms you might not encounter in daily life, but they are key to understanding color theory. Hue is the easiest one. It's basically just another word for color. Saturation refers to intensity. In other words, whether the color appears more subtle or more vibrant. Finally, value has to do with how dark or the light the color is, ranging from black to white. So a big question appears. How do we know which colors look good together and which ones don't? In order to answer this question, we first need to know primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. I'm sure everyone knows that the primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. So why are these the three primary colors? Because these are the only colors that cannot be created when mixing any other two colors together. So what happens when these colors combine? As you can see, the mix of primary colors gives us secondary colors. These are orange, green, and purple. Finally, tertiary colors. Tertiary colors are the combination of the secondary colors we obtain with the primary color close to itself. As we can see, these are yellow-green, purple blue, blue green, red purple, orange red, and orange yellow. The second step is required to answer our question is know what the color wheel is. So, what is this color wheel? When you take all the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors and throw them all together, you have what is called a color wheel. Any and every color imaginable is available in the color wheel. So, and I'm sure everyone knows that the color wheel is split into two as cool and warm. By looking at this image, here you can see how red, yellow, and orange are on sides of the color wheel, making them warm, while blue, green, and purple are on the other side, making them cool. So what's the use of knowing this? Although we will talk in more detail in color psychology section, I can summarize briefly at this point like this. Warm and cool colors represent different emotions. With warm colors, you think of summer days in the heat. Cool colors remind us the quarter months or even just a clear blue sky. A good way to think of warm and cool colors in graphic design. Warm colors in a design make it feel cozy and comfortable. Cool colors provide a sense of cleanliness. The right combination of warm and cool colors will make a design pop. And you are using most of the cool colors as a spark of warmth to emphasize something you feel as important. We have come to the final stage to answer our question, which is color harmony. It's grouping the colors in a way that pleases eyes. While examining the colors, experts realized that designs were preferred when some rules were applied besides many color combinations. Each of these rules creates a different color harmony. I will now summarize the most three used rules. Our first rule selection, monochromatic color schemes. Monochromatic colors are shades and tints of the same color. In other words, when we choose the monochromatic method, we are going to use only one color or hue. What you need to do to use the monochromatic method is very simple. Just pick a spot on the color wheel and use your knowledge of saturation and value to create variations. The best thing about monochromatic color schemes is that they are guaranteed to match. And as you can see in the example, I choose the color red to create our monochromatic color scheme and diversified my color palette using my saturation and value knowledge. And our second selection rule is analogous color schemes. Analogous color schemes uses colors that are next to each other on the wheel, like reds and oranges, or cooler colors like blues and greens. Analogous color schemes provide a sense of calmness and knowledge without too much excitement. Also, analogous colors typically always work well together since they have a similar origins. As you can see in the example, if I select these three colors close to each other on the color wheel, I will be using analogous color schemes. And our last rule, complementary color schemes. Complementary colors are opposite each other on the wheel. For instance, blue and orange or the classic red and green. Complementary colors have high contrast, which produce vibrant, exciting color schemes. There's one thing to remember when using two complementary colors. Avoid using 50% of one color and 50% of the other. This can make a graphic look difficult to look at. Make one color dominant while the other complements that main color. You want to look for an 80-20 split. Now, that you learned how to pair colors with one another, let's look into the meanings of individual colors. After all, a color have a positive or negative connotations, so you want to ensure that you are choosing the right color for your audience. Color psychology is a field of science which asserts that colors can have a deep impact on our behavior, perception, and humor. The psychology of color is based on the mental and emotional effects color have on sighted people in all phases of life. There are some very subjective pieces to color psychology, as well as some more accepted and proven elements. Keep in mind that there will also be variation in interpretation, meaning, and perception between different cultures. Let's look at the meaning of colors. So, first one, red. Red is very powerful, dynamic color that reflects our physical needs, whether to show affection and love, or to portray terror, fear, and survival. Red is also a very energizing color that can portray friendliness and strength, but can also be demanding and show aggression depending on its context. Blue is known for its trust and dependability. It's reliable, responsible, and mentally soothing. For that reason alone, it is one of the most liked colors across the entire world. Unlike red, blue lends a more mental reaction rather than physical that allows us to distress, calm down, and think of the most ideal situation. Unfortunately, it is also one of the last colors to be seen and can be perceived as distant, cold, or unfriendly if used in great amounts. Yellow is epitome of joy, happiness, cheerfulness, optimism, you name it. Anything happy is almost always yellow. The wavelength of yellow is particularly long, making it have one of the most powerful psychological meanings, while also being the easiest color to visibly see. Also, good point of sale messagings and calls to action. Green is a color of balance and harmony. It lends us a clearer sense of right from wrong sides. Green incorporates a balance of both logical and emotional. Green is the one of the most seen color in nature reflecting life, rest and peace. It is also a sign of growth, whether that's in a physical object like plants or in our income and wealth. Orange has a very interesting psychological meaning as it combines red's power and energy with yellow's friendliness and fun. The mix makes orange a good representation of physical comfort in our warmth, food, and shelter. Purple is mostly common for its imagination and spirituality. It possesses the energy and power of red with the stability and reliability of blue, making it a perfect balance between the physical and spiritual. Purple is often used to show luxury, loyalty, courage, mystery, and magic. Pink is a softer, less intense version of red that creates a sense of compassion and unconditional love. While it's a very physical color, it soothes rather than stimulates, making it a perfect color for caring, understanding, and nurturing those in need. It is also known to be very romantic as it shows empathy and sensitivity. If too much pink is used, it can be very draining, show lack of power, and even immature. Overall, pink can be great counter-opinion to the color red when used appropriately. And finally, brown, while maybe not the most visual stimulating color, is a great sign of structure, security, and protection. Whether it's family, friends, and material possessions, brown offers constant support. It's also very serious, down to the earth color you can use where black might to be intense. The downfall to brown is that it's the most safe color and seem reserved, scheduled, and boring. Overall, use it when necessarily, but don't depend on it too heavily. Black is a color of sophistication, seriousness, control, and independence. Although it can also be used to show evil, mystery, depression, and even death. Black is a very reserved color that completely lacks any light as it can absence of all colors. Its light stay too hidden in control and separate from others. For this reason, black is a great color for high contrast and easy legibility. Unfortunately, since a very powerful color, too much black can cause sadness and overall negativity, so use it sparingly and in your text more so than the visuals itself. White is a color that is completely complete and pure, making it a perfect example of purity, innocence, cleanness, and peace. White can also represent new beginnings, providing a blank slate and gives refreshment for new ideas. Since white has an equal balance of the colors, it can exemplify several meanings with equality overweighing them all. White is a great color for simplicity, cleanness, and idea creation. However, avoid using too much white as it can cause isolation, loneliness, and emptiness. So, those are some rules you can keep in mind when you exploring colors. Now that we finished the first title of the color required for a successful visual communication, we can now switch to our second title, typography. Again, I start with a question. What is typography? Typography can be defined as the art of working with text. Almost every type of writing has different meanings, and these meanings play a very important role conveying the design to the target correctly. Therefore, it is necessary to look at these different meanings for successful visual communication. Of course, as you all know, there are thousands of fonts, and it will take a long time to see what these fonts mean individually. That's why we divide these fonts into groups according to their specific characteristics, and in this way, we can examine their meanings more comfortably. If we look briefly at the best known of these groupings, we first encounter serif fonts. Serif fonts have little strokes called serif attached to the main part of the letter. Because of their classic look, they are good choice for more traditional design. In addition, when serif fonts are being used, they convey feelings such as professionalism, trust, and elegance to the design. Times New Roman, Georgia, Palatino, and Garamond that you have seen are some of the most used fonts in this group. We can also see the use of these fonts quite frequently in our lives. As you can see, the fonts of the logos of Vogue, Dior, and Zara are serif fonts. And our second group is sans serif fonts. Sans serif fonts don't have that extra stroke. This style considered more clean and modern than serif fonts. Also, it's meant to be easier to read on computer screens, including smartphones and tablets. It provides a plain, cool, and modern appearance with its clean and clear appearance. Because they are versatile, they are used by most brands today. Arial, Helvetica, Tahoma, and Montserrat are some of the prominent fonts of these groups. As you can see, the logos of Microsoft and Google are created from these groups of fonts. And finally, display fonts. Display fonts come in many different styles, like script, black letter, and just plain fancy. Because of their decorative nature, display fonts are best for small amounts of text. For example, titles and headers, and more graphic-heavy designs. I would like to mention two of the most used types of display fonts. The first one is round fonts. Round fonts give a fun, friendly, and feminine feel. As you can see, the logos of Skype and Pampers are created using round fonts. And another one is script fonts. Script fonts convey a feminine and friendly feeling. They are very open to customization. Different styles can emerge. Coca-Cola and Disney logos are a good example of these fonts. So besides knowing all these meanings, what should we do for a successful typography? First of all, we should be simpler when using fonts. Using more than 3 fonts together will negatively affect the legibility and simplicity of the design. It will be more effective to use different thickness and weights of the same font. Secondly, besides knowing all these meanings, what should we do for a successful typography? First of all, we should be simpler when using fonts. Using more than 3 fonts together will negatively affect the legibility and simplicity of the design. It will be more effective to use different thickness and weights of the same font. Secondly, we should pay attention to the point size. For example, if your paragraph is 16 points, the title should be 32 points. This is important for the hierarchy. You can try 3 or 4 times for different results where appropriate. And finally, we have to pay attention to the gaps. Make sure that there is not a single word in the last line of the paragraph. Do not let the new paragraph or new page begin with a word or line from previous past. Now that we have taken a look at this title, we can now talk about our last title, design layout. Design layout expresses the harmony of the elements that we will position in the files we are working in and the presentation of the design we have created and the message we want to give to the reader in the most suitable visuality. There are many things that can be done to provide order in a design. The most important of these are, it can be listed as providing hierarchy in designs, aligning the design elements, grouping the elements we plan to use, putting geometric shapes into the design, and knowing what and where to put on the designs based on the negative space rule. So let's start with the hierarchy in design. Hierarchy is used to guide the reader's eye to whatever is most important. In other words, it shows them where to begin and where to go next, using different levels of emphasis. Establishing hierarchy is simple. Just decide which elements you want to reader notice first, then make them stand out. High-level items are usually larger, bolder, or different in some way. Remember to keep it simple and stick to just a few complementary styles. As you can see in some examples in the image on the side, there are many types of hierarchy in designs. In our case, if we think that we should create content that mostly uses text, like subject, title, speaker names, location, date, time, these two examples may be the methods we will use the most to create a hierarchy in the designs we will prepare. Now that we've seen a few tactics at the hierarchy point, we can skip another topic, the alignments. There are some things that can be done to provide alignment in design. The first to align the elements symmetrically. Symmetrical designs are same or similar on both sides of an axis. They feel balanced because each side is effectively the same, if not identical. Another method is align to items asymmetrically. Asymmetrical designs are different, but the way they still evenly distribute. The composition is balanced because it calls attention to the right things. In addition to these methods, if we go a little deeper, we encounter rule of thirds, which is the key for alignment. Our brains are programmed to look for patterns. More often than not, we are attracted to symmetry. Designers use basic principles of design on a daily basis for visual harmony so that their work appeals to all of us. In truth, you don't have to submerge yourself in a detailed articles about the golden ratio or study the Fibonacci sequence to improve your designs. You can create well-balanced, appealing designs using simple rule, the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a simple technique where designers divide their designs up into 2 rows and 3 columns. And at the point where the vertical and horizontal lines meet is where your focal points should be. As long as you bring your focal points somewhere closer to these intersections, they will stand out more. Objects that are further away from the intersections will be less of a focal point. Mind you, this does not mean you have to always place your object along the intersectioning lines for perfect symmetry. The beauty of rule of thirds is that it's a guide to better visual symmetry, which also includes asymmetry. Let's look how this information looks like in practice with an example. So I will ask you a question again. Which design is more pleasant to your eyes? I think you have decided, and most likely the design on the right is more pleasant to your eyes because, as you can see, it was designed according to rule of thirds. Now, proximity. Proximity is all about using space to show relationship in content. In practice, it's pretty simple. All we have to do is make sure related items are grouped together. For example, block of text or elements in graphic. Groups are not related to each other should be separated to visually emphasize their lack of a relationship. Lack of proximity such in this design creates a sloppy, unbalanced look, and mixing too many elements can have a similar effect. In this design, I use proximity and creative balance to create order, organize page elements, group the elements, and create visual connection. As we see in this practice with examples, we can move on to next topic, geometric shapes. There are always one or several geometric shapes in each design. Geometric shapes are often used whether in logo designs or text edits. As with almost every design element, there is a sub-meaning that it gives to the reader in geometric shapes. For an effective design, it is necessary to put the hidden meanings of geometric shapes into the design using them in various ways. If we talk briefly about the basics, Triangle symbolizes harmony, square recession, rectangle excellence, and finally round symbolizes femininity. And now, negative space rule is fifth and perhaps one of the most important for design layout. According to data obtained by the research, in visual designs, people first look at the upper left side, then the lower left section, then the upper right side, and finally the lower right side. It's very important to take this into consideration in the design. Negative space rule, on the other hand, means that the top left of the design, which is the longest and the first view of the viewers, is left empty, and thus the focus is on the whole design. And finally, logo positioning. Key point for logo positioning, the logo must be where the readers last looked on the design. Although varying in different conditions, iFocus studies show that viewers look at the bottom right corner last in designs, so logo positioning is also the bottom right corner in terms of permanence. And there are three main headings and subheadings that we need to know how successfully visual communication. In general, I want to end this presentation by giving 4 tips. 1, it's important to leave a space. Do not fill your work area in order to make the text large and the detail of the post more certain. 2, pay attention to the selected images. The image use should be compatible with both the design and the subject and should not be overlooked. Real photos attract more attention than drawings. 3, we have to get rid of unnecessary design objects. Try to give the message you want to give to a user in its simplest form. 4, note the gaps between the objects. Be sure that the space is capacious and tidy. Let space define relationship between your objects. And thank you for listening.
We want to thank our speaker in this video, Berfin from BPW in Turkey, specifically one of the clubs in Istanbul, for this wonderful presentation on the principles of graphic design. Berfin is a psychologist already and now studying advertising, and so design, but also the psychology of design is a very important part of her career. So we thank you for that, Berfin. We hope that along with some of our programs here on graphic design technique and platforms, that you utilize these principles in order to get the best results in your BPW affiliate in creating all of your materials, depending on what each purpose is. So we hope that this will be helpful to you. Thanks again to you, our viewers, for joining us in this series. We invite you to check out many of the other videos here that we have, and we have many more coming up this month and next and ongoing, including live webinars. So on the 3rd and 4th, and sometimes even a 5th Wednesday of the month, we have live webinars you can join as part of the audience. Please see our Facebook page for more information, and the link is below. Thanks again to all of you, and bye for now.